Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, an independent channel where you can see the world differently. Today, we discuss ICC arrest warrants, when the International Court issued orders against Russian, Israeli, and Hamas leaders. In this video, we will first brief the ICC warrants against Russian leader Putin and his officials. On March 17, 2023, after investigating war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Vladimir Putin, the President of Russia, and Maria Lvova-Belova, the Russian Commissioner for Children's Rights. They were accused of the war crime of unlawfully deporting and transferring children during the Russo-Ukrainian War. The warrant against Putin was the first issued against a leader of a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. Until today, no leaders from other permanent members, China, the US, the UK, and France, have been issued such a warrant. Some leaders even received the Nobel Peace Prize after launching wars against other nations. To date, the ICC has also issued arrest warrants for several Russian military officers including Viktor Sokolov, Sergei Kobylash, Sergei Shoigu, and Valery Gerasimov, accusing them of directing attacks on civilian objects and committing the crime against humanity based on the inhumane acts under the Rome Statute. The Russian government denied and rejected the ICC's authority, arguing that Russia is not a party to the Rome Statute, and therefore it does not recognize the court's jurisdiction. This raises questions about the effectiveness of the ICC warrants and the challenges of enforcing them, given the geopolitical implications. The situation has also sparked varied reactions from global leaders and political figures. Some support the ICC's actions as necessary for accountability, while others criticize them as politically motivated. As this situation unfolds, it remains a focal point of international dialogue on accountability and justice in conflict situations. Fortunately for Putin and his officials, they are not alone anymore, as ICC just issued arrest warrants against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes, saying there were reasonable grounds to believe they should be held accountable for starvation in Gaza. The ICC also issued an arrest warrant for Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif for alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes. On August 1, 2024, Israel announced that Deif had been killed in an airstrike in southern Gaza in July 2024. Many politicians from various countries have responded to the International Criminal Court's warrants against Israeli leaders. Almost all American lawmakers and government officials, Democratic and Republican, firmly oppose the ICC arrest warrants, with a few exceptions. The U.S. government was quick to reject the warrants, and Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokeswoman, said, "We fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials." According to the lady, the White House is deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision. However, she did not point out those errors. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has threatened to sanction allies if they enforce the International Criminal Court's issuance of arrest warrants against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as many of these allies have pledged to do.
So to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
Well, that means I want every ally, and you saw little Justin in Canada and his position. What should the penalty be?
We should crush your economy because we're next.
ICC prosecutor Karim Khan applied for the warrant 6 months ago. In August, he urged the court to decide, stating, "Any unjustified delay in these proceedings detrimentally affects the rights of victims." Since ICC announced the decision, Israeli officials have criticized the warrants. Israeli Transportation Minister Miri Regev referred to them as modern anti-Semitism in the guise of justice. Netanyahu's office rejected the decision, describing it as anti-Semitic in a statement. Israel rejects with disgust the absurd and false actions leveled against it by the ICC, his office stated, and it further added that Israel won't give in to pressure and will continue to defend its people. The conflict in Gaza has continued for over a year. It began when Hamas-led militants stormed into southern Israel on October 7, 2023, killing about 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducting another 250, around 100 of whom remain in Gaza, with at least a third believed to be dead. Israel justifies its military action in Gaza as defending its citizens and for the freedom of hostages. The United States is one of the very few Western countries that support Israel for its controversial attack in Gaza, which has caused thousands of casualties in the past 12 months. The Gaza Health Ministry reported that over 44,000 people have been killed and more than 100,000 wounded since the war began. The actual toll is believed to be higher as thousands of bodies are buried under rubble or in areas inaccessible to medics. The Gaza Health Ministry does not differentiate between civilians and combatants in its count, but it states that more than half of the fatalities are women and children. The Israeli military claims it has killed over 17,000 militants, but it has not provided evidence. BBC reported 2 days ago that the United States had blocked a Gaza ceasefire draft resolution at the UNSC, the fourth time it had used its veto power to protect its ally, Israel. It is worth mentioning that BBC made a mistake in the report. It was the sixth time, not the fourth time, that the US had vetoed UN resolutions in Gaza since the outbreak of the war. On November 20th, 14 of the 15 council members voted in favor of the draft, which demanded that the war in Gaza must end immediately, unconditionally, and permanently, and all remaining hostages must be immediately and unconditionally released. The vote was held as the United Nations warned that Palestinians were facing diminishing conditions for survival in parts of northern Gaza under siege by Israeli forces, as virtually no aid had been delivered in the past 40 days. Critics of the veto sharply rebuked the US, with France expressing deep regret over the move. Fu Song, China's permanent representative to the United Nations, expressed deep disappointment in an explanatory speech. The United States' sole use of the veto power has crushed the Gaza people's only hope of survival, pushing them further into darkness and despair. Since the war began, the US has relentlessly provided its support for Israel despite global criticism. Even some of its allies, like France, do not stand with the US in supporting Israel. After the ICC announced its decision to arrest Israeli leaders, US President Joe Biden made a statement immediately. The ICC issuance of arrest warrants against Israeli leaders is outrageous. Let me be clear once again, whatever the ICC might imply, there is no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas. We will always stand with Israel against threats to its security. What is worth noting is that some allies of the United States, including Canada, which follows the US step by step on most international affairs, respect the decision of the ICC. Justin Trudeau said Canada would abide by the rulings of international courts. French Ministry of Foreign Affairs said France would act in line with the ICC's statutes, but its spokesman declined to say whether Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to the country, as it was legally complex. French President Emmanuel Macron has been firmly against Netanyahu. On October 24, 2024, he warned Benjamin Netanyahu that civilization is not best defended by sowing barbarism ourselves. Germany was very cautious, for historical reasons, saying it would carefully examine the arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. Before visiting the country, Germany will not take further steps. The federal government was involved in the drafting of the ICC statute, and is one of the ICC's biggest supporters. This position is also a result of German history. At the same time, a consequence of German history is that we have a unique relationship and a great responsibility to Israel. Surprisingly, Hungary showed its dissent to the ICC arrest warrants. Its foreign minister Peter Szijjártó denounced the ICC decision, calling it shameful and absurd, cited by presidential spokesperson Zoltán Kovács on X, formerly Twitter. This decision disgraces the international judiciary by equating leaders of a country attacked by a heinous terror attack with the leaders of the terrorist organization responsible, the foreign minister said. Such a decision is unacceptable. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán supported Netanyahu and defied the ICC arrest warrant, saying he would invite his Israeli counterpart to visit Hungary. Regarding the ICC decision as outrageously brazen and cynical, Orbán said the arrest warrant intervenes in an ongoing conflict, dressed up as a legal decision, but in fact for political purposes. Viktor Orbán is one of the very few national leaders who showed sympathies with Netanyahu. The European Commission issued a sharp warning to him, saying that Hungary's flouting the order would breach its international obligations and entail reputational damage to the country. All EU member states, including Hungary, are parties to the Rome Statute, so they are expected to comply with the ICC warrants. It is noteworthy that around 70 countries, including China, Russia, India, and the US, have not signed the 1998 treaty, Rome Statute, so they do not have to follow the ICC's order to arrest any suspects on their soil. However, 125 member states, which signed the Rome Statute, are not necessarily obliged to execute the arrest warrants issued by the ICC. Different countries will make their own decisions based on the international political environment and their national interests. For instance, Mongolia is a party state to the Rome Statute. When the Russian president visited the country in early September 2024, it should have complied with the ICC's warrant to arrest him. However, Putin received a warm welcome in Ulaanbaatar, which Kyiv condemned as a betrayal of justice and accountability. This time, the warrants to arrest Netanyahu and his former defense minister are also difficult to execute. The same day as the ICC announced the arrest warrants, Israel unleashed another wave of airstrikes on a residential area in Beit Lahia, killing 88 people, most of whom were women and children in their sleep. For many people in Gaza, tomorrow is still a luxury they cannot afford. Thanks for watching our videos, and please subscribe to our channel if you have not done that so you will not miss our uploads every day. Like, forward and share our videos with your friends, helping DFTW become a club with 1 million subscribers shortly. Thanks again.